This is Love Never Fails with your host, Marilyn Redmond. Marilyn shares her experience, strength, and hope, and includes tools to help you find your inner strength for health, healing, and empowerment. So now, please welcome the host of Love Never Fails, Marilyn Redmond.
I'm your host, Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails. And we are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And we're so glad you're back with us today, listening again to Love Never Fails. We're getting a big audience, and we would like to have it grow some more. So tell all your friends, neighbors, and all your relatives that we're on every Tuesday afternoon, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And since it's a call-in radio, we'll give you the phone number, 866-451-1451, and you can call in with any questions. And today our questions are going to be not necessarily about flower essences if you have something else on your mind, but we are going to talk about those today and how they can help you. And so we've invited Diana Pepper to come, and she is just an amazing lady. And I just want you to meet her because I think that she does some miraculous things in helping your life get better and improving it. And I want to hear from her. So, Diana, are you there?
I am here.
We're so glad to have you here today and joining us. And I know you have many, many years of working in this area of flower essences. And, you know, I first came across flower essences over 25 years ago. I was living on my own. And I was into meditation and prayer and spiritual growth. And I said in my meditations, I need something to support me in my growth. And I'm all by myself. How do I get some help for that, emotional, spiritual help? And what came to me was flower essences. Marilyn, you can take flower essences and they will help you and support your life in growing. So that was how I first found out about them. And Diana's been providing those flower essences for quite a few years in my life. I would like all my listeners, before we really get into hearing from you, Diana, about an amazing thing. I ordered about once a year, I have an order I send in to Diana for what I need for my clients. And I called in the order, and it was about the middle of the afternoon. And to my surprise, by lunchtime the next day, the mailman was ringing my doorbell because the box wouldn't fit in the mailbox. And so with less than 24 hours, I was delivered my order of flower essences. Diana, you have terrific service.
Well, thank you. Well, that was an excellent service on the part of the Postal Service. We usually get ours out the same day or the day after at the latest.
Well,
but the Postal Service was pretty fast, that one.
Well, they sure were. I was surprised. In fact, when the doorbell rang, I thought, oh, what's coming? And I sure didn't expect them, but it was sure good service. Well, I'm eager to hear about your background and about Tree Frog Farm. What would you like to tell us about how you came into doing this and how you found out about that you were able to do this?
Oh, yeah, right. Well, it's not something I ever thought I'd be doing, actually. I spent my earlier years in banking and finance, and I decided that wasn't my thing, and so I got out and was doing other stuff. And then, let's see, that would have been about 1997. I had been in a spiritual community for 12 years, and I left that group, and I was with my new partner, John Robinson, who now we've been together for over 21 years. And I started using some flower essences from other companies that a friend had introduced me to. And I started, after working with him for a little while, it was like, wait a minute, I'm not learning about these, I'm remembering about them. And it felt very, very familiar, like I have done this for lifetimes. So that happened in Boulder, Colorado, where John and I met. And then after being there together for a couple of years, we decided to come back to the Northwest. I lived in Seattle before I went to Boulder, and he lived up in the Bellingham and Lummi Island area before he went to Boulder. So we came back to the land that he had already had here on Lummi Island. And as soon as we were here, it was like my guides and the fairies were like, we're making flower essences. And I'm like, okay. Someone's going to tell me how to do this. Someone's going to have to teach me how to do this. I had a book, and I read some out of a book about how to do it. I got just a basic pattern. But there's way more than just how you go through the process of making it. So the first couple of years were like training and the fairies love to play jokes. So one day they led me on a trek through the woods, and I was like pushing through dense bushes and wet bogs and salmonberry brush, and I finally came around to this plant where they were leading me to this one plant. And I looked up and I went, well, I could have just walked across the yard where we started, across an open space, right up to the front of this plant. Instead, they led me through all this brush and undergrowth and all these wet places and up to the back of the plant. I'm like, why'd you guys do that? And they were like, because we wanted to find out if you could listen and follow directions. And they said, okay, now you're ready to make flower essences. Because I'm the person who's like the third dimensional body and the hands and the feet, and I walk around and I place the bottles and I place the stones and I'm the energetic connecting point, and I'm like, but I'm only a fraction of what goes into making these. I mean, and it's not me. It's not myself in them. It's the download of the information that's coming from the spirit of that plant, the universal spirit of that plant, sometimes called the deva. And it's coming into bottles that we put by the plant. And I'm the person that says, okay, this is the plant, these are the bottles, this is where we're doing it. And we use crystals to go around and define the area where the field under which the download will happen, and it's usually within at most a 3-foot radius, and sometimes a 1-foot radius, and so that's kind of the process, and so I have to know a lot more. It's not just here, put these guys here. It's like, which plant are we doing? Why are we doing it now? Is the plant ready? Is there another plant that's more important to make right now? And so it's not always my choice as to what to make what when. It's a matter of timing the plant's flowering and just the weather in Washington, Western Washington State on the coast here of the Salish Sea, sometimes called the Puget Sound area, is quite variable. So we're timing the flowering of the plants, we're timing the weather, and we're timing my schedule with business and clients and everything else going on to be able to come to a point where we can make the essence. So there's a lot of factors in it, and part of the training was, can I listen, and can I sense and feel what needs to happen when and why.
Well, that is so fascinating. We're going to come back in just a few minutes and hear more from Diana Pepper and how she makes and tells us all about flower essences in just a minute. I am Marilyn Redmond. You are listening to Love Never Fails, and we are coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I am Marilyn Redmond. This is Love Never Fails, and we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're having a lively talk with Diana Pepper about flower essences. She's been telling us how she puts those flower essences together and downloads the universal spirit or energy she calls diva to make it really powerful for your benefit. And we would like to ask her if she could explain to our listeners if someone came up to you and really didn't know much about this, which many of us don't, how would you explain flower essences to our listeners today?
Well, it took me about 10 years, but I finally figured out a way to come up with an analogy that most people understand. Think about walking into your house, and you flip on a light switch, and you expect the light to come on, right? Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't come on, and you know that the light switch is good and you know the light bulb is good, then that tells you there's something going on in the circuit between them.
Right.
So our bodies are like that too. We're organic, like the physical structure of the building. I mean, we need foods and teas and tinctures and salves and all those kinds of things for our organic body. But our electrical systems that run the organic sometimes need support. And that's where the flower essences come in. So they come in to, like, turn up the rheostat or to give you more life force or to complete a circuit so an organ or a body system works better. And so that's a kind of a brief description of how they function and why. Is that
so
clear?
when we actually take a flower essences, how do they work in our system? Can you explain that?
Yes. So even though you usually take them orally, you're not really ingesting the essence. It's different than a homeopathic. So like a homeopathic you take and you put it under your tongue because you want it to go in sublingually into the bloodstream and start its vibrational work at the cellular level. By comparison, a flower essence comes in and starts its work through the energy field and the energy circuitry and the chakras and the meridians, and from working on the energetics of what underlies what goes on physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and mentally. It works through those. It works into those areas and supports whatever is needed. Let me see. As an example, we've got the organ energy meridian blend, and each of those organs relates to a meridian pathway. And so when I blend several different essences together, so say like stomach, then that essence blend is also grounded through a matrix of crystals, and that combination then supports the meridian pathway that supports the stomach and the digestive processes, the emotional process that have to do with worry, with feeling overwhelmed, and being able to switch that over to feeling like you can trust and be in the world safely. It works with the spinning of thoughts and spinning to help it slow down so you can think more clearly, and things like that.
Well, that's a very detailed description. I really appreciate that. I hadn't heard it that deeply defined before. Yeah, I noticed that some of your flower essences are put into alcohol or brandy, and sometimes you use a special tea. Why do you use the two different ones, and how did that come about?
Brandy is the most common, and that's what most people expect and most companies use. But there's a lot of people who can't do alcohol. I don't do alcohol. There was alcoholism in my family of origin, and it just doesn't agree with me, and I don't particularly care to use alcohol. However, when I was first working with essences, I was using some essences from another company that was using this herbal vinegar base, and the woman. It's Green Hope Farm, and the woman's name is Molly Sheehan, and she was very gracious to share with me the way to make the base. And so I started learning how to grow the herb and make the red shiso vinegar base. Now, it's we use the shiso leaf because it's high in antimicrobial properties. It's what's served with raw fish. It makes the pink color in the daikon or the ginger that's served with raw fish, and sometimes the leaf itself is served with the fish. So it's a carrier base. Again, the essence itself is electrical, so it needs to be in something physical in order to take it. And so the tea is made, the spent herbs are taken out, and then we add organic white grain vinegar, which is distilled, and that becomes the carrier base. It's like 80% shiso tea and 20% vinegar.
I would. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it's also a fine alternative for anybody who is gluten intolerant. My partner is celiac, and so he's very sensitive to anything that has gluten in it. And because the vinegar is distilled, there's no problem.
Oh, that's good news for everybody. At times, I don't know if this is smart or not. Can you mix the alcohol-based flower essences with the tea in a same formula, same remedy?
Some people do. I usually separate my sets. So for when I'm doing client work, I do one or the other. But I have some students who have purchased essences in different essences in the different bases, and when they make a blend, they may combine them. It's not that much of a problem. It might taste a little different than people are used to, but it's not a big problem.
Oh, that's good to hear. I know there's other flower essences out there. How does Tree Frog Farm flower essences compare with the popular Bach flower? There's a rose garden type of flower essences in Australia, and actually there's lots of different types of flower essences. How does Tree Frog Farm different, and how does you want to explain that to us?
Yes, I'd be happy to. One of the things I've already mentioned is that our essences are electrical, and some other companies, the essences are homeopathic, like Bach are homeopathic. If you look at the bottle, there's homeopathic dilution markers on the label.
Well, we're going to take a break right here and come back and find more out about this from Diana. I am Marilyn Redmond, your host of Love Never Fails. We are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Tune in to hear more about how these can help you with your life. Stay tuned. I am Marilyn Redmond, your host, and you are listening to Love Never Fails. We are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and we are celebrating having Diana Pepper here. She is an amazing lady who can actually talk to the divas and the plants and the trees and get these wonderful, wonderful electrical energy into flower essences to help our well-being. And she was just telling us the differences between different flower essences and hers. So, Diana, you said you had some more to share about that.
Yes, thank you. So I've kind of mentioned in passing some of the other differences, but I'd like to highlight that. So one is that most flower essences are made by floating flowers on the water and putting them out in the sun, and then the connection between the flower and the water imprints the vibrational quality of that. Now, some companies, like they're really big, like the Bach, they've moved from that to actually making huge vats inside, which, they float flowers on warm water, and they kind of make a tea and then do homeopathic dilutions of it. So instead, like I mentioned before, my essences are electrical. So I set what are called the mother bottles. They're a storage bottle that's sealed, and I set them, it has a cap on it, and then I set them by the plant, and we define the area of influence by crystals and create a download, more kind of like a computer download. And it's coming in, if like an analogy, if you will, you start from the power generation plant, and it steps down through various transformers. And one of those transformers is the sun, and then they come into the bottles that are sitting next to the plant. This is from what I understand, this is a more ancient way of doing it, because there are shamanic people who I know of and I've heard about who will just set a bottle on the altar or by the plant, and they will go, please download and please bring this plant spirit into the bottle. And it happens. I mean, you have to have that capacity, and gratefully I've developed that capacity. So another way of thinking about flower essences is a plant spirit in the bottle. That's a fun way to say it.
Mm.
So that difference is floating flowers on water compared to the direct download into the fluids, either the brandy in some of the bottles or the red shiso base in some of the other bottles. So that's one way. Another way that they're different is by the use of crystals and the way that I'm using them in grids. So some companies will make flower essences, and then separately they will make gem essences. And sometimes they will combine them into blends, but they're separate essences. And in this case, it's the process. It's still a flower essence, but it's influenced by the stones that are around it, and how that helps to expand and deepen the quality of the essence.
That is so fascinating to me. Well, I first met you in Seattle when you did a workshop or explanation of the work you're doing at a bookstore, and I've been a big fan. And since you've been explaining this on the air to me, I now better understand why I am attracted to your flower essences.
Right.
So
right.
I've pretty much forgotten the others for the most part, and so I really do rely on yours the most. What has become the biggest challenge for you in building your business and competing with those other companies?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Well, gratefully, I have a background in business, so that helps. I think initially the biggest thing was defining what I wanted to do, because I was trying to do a variety of different things. And so I finally honed it down to only flower essences, because I knew that was my gift and my client work, and now I also teach. And so making the essences and the product development. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a massive business into it, and I think the biggest part for me that's been challenging is working with internet kinds of things and social media kinds of things. So I'm on a big learning curve around that, and I gratefully have some young people working with me who understand that more. And so we were just setting up a Facebook group page for my students. And it took me a while to finally figure out, I could just upload the video right onto the Facebook page. It took me a couple hours to realize, I can just do that, because that's not my forte.
Well, it's not mine either. So if people were wanting to have a consultation with you about what flower essences are best for their situation that they're trying to improve in their life, how would they reach you, and what would a consultation look like?
Most of my work is over the telephone. People are very welcome to come here and meet me at Tree Frog Farm on Lummi Island in Washington State if they would like to, and some local people do. But again, most of my work is over the telephone. Do you have a phone number you would? Yes. The phone number is area code 360-758-7260.
$7260. I'm writing it down. Okay, so now if I called you,
repeat one more time.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, 360-758-7260.
Okay, now what would a consultation? How would that work with you?
So the first thing we do is we talk about what you would like the flower essences to help you with. And why you're drawn to working with me, and what kind of issues are going on physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually that you want to work on. I'm usually asking some questions about life history and just to get a feel. And then then I have all of my 132 individual flower essences spread out in front of me, and I'm using muscle testing with my hands. I read remote, so I'll be reading that person's energy, and I'm assuming I have permission because we're in an agreement to hold this session. So then we pick out the essences, make a combination bottle, and send it off to them.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. We are talking with Diana Pepper. We're going to be returning and finding out she also teaches classes, so stay tuned. This is Love Never Fails. I'm your hostess, Marilyn Redmond at BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and we'll return and find out about her classes that she has and the blends and other work she's doing, so stay tuned. I'm your host, Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails. We are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and welcome back. And we're talking to Diana Pepper today about flower essences, and Tree Frog Farm is where she makes all these marvelous essences. And she talked about consultations a minute ago. You can call in and talk with her and find out the ones that work for you. She also does training classes. If you are so drawn to this and wanted to maybe take some classes from her, Diana, tell us about your classes and how. I know you've got one coming up in July.
Yes, that is a sequence in a class series. So we started the class in May, and it's a 3-part class. And right now I'm focusing on training people who are interested in becoming flower essence practitioners themselves, either for themselves and their families or for their clients. So they're learning how to use flower essences using both kind of a logical sort of way of you would use this one in this kind of situation, but more importantly, in my understanding, is an intuitive sort of a way to, because the brain doesn't always know what the body needs. So,
exactly.
So I teach them muscle testing and working with pendulums and how to discern by reading the person. They trade off as student and practitioner during class, so they learn how to discern what that person needs by letting the essences speak, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's my main focus in classes right now. I have taught how to make flower essences separately, but right now that's rolled into this practitioner training class.
Wonderful.
And I may at some point pick up again and do another class for energy healers and workers who are wanting to incorporate flower essences into their practice. And that will probably be another level that I'll be working with these students and other people. That will be a more open class.
Well, those are wonderful opportunities for our listeners if they're in the healing field or want to, like you said, for your families. This is really a very good option to what the medical profession offers us. It's non-toxic. So
yes,
I really do
I
really do recommend people learning more about this. Last week we did a show on stress, and I thought if I asked you just off the top of your head, or you've got your work right there, probably right with you. If someone called in and said, I'm really overloaded, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired all the time, and I have lots of stress. Now, what would you tell that person?
Well, we've got several ways to address that. One is our flower essence and aromatherapy mister, which is called Stress Relief. And it's actually on special right now. So it's I just put a newsletter out that highlights that product along with our No Worry Be Happy essence blend. So I do have some products that have essential oils blended into them. There's a line of, I think, about 7 that have essential oils blended into them. Everything else is straight flower essences that are vibrational and non-aromatic. So, the stress relief is something that's really easy to use. It's in a spray mister, and a lot of people enjoy essential oils, so that's a good one in that case. If they want to, then I start asking more questions about what's the orientation of the stress, where's the most of the stress happening in your life, and then I can get more specific. There's if the stress is really, really, really intense, And it's where the person starts to go into shock from the amount of stress that there is. If it's just repeated things going on all the time and they just have to go get shocky, then I direct them to the SOS flower remedy, which would be sort of comparable to the rescue remedy from the Bach, but this is a more expanded version, and it works on a lot of different levels. And again, it's electrical instead of homeopathic. And then if they want individual essences, then I would probably direct them to something like the woodland strawberry flower essence, which is about anxiety and worry, because that's a lot of what we do when we're stressed. We get anxious and we get worried.
Right.
Another kind of stress, though, comes from people who are sensitive to the energies around them. And in that case, I would direct them more towards the calm, centered, and clear essence blend, which is really good if you're traveling or for students where there's a lot of people around all the time, like in a school that's a large school and a lot of activity, and you're always around other people's energies, and that might be really difficult for you to separate and ground yourself and feel your own self in that environment. And that creates a lot of stress for some people.
Well, I suggest to people, if you have these kinds of concerns, and you might have other concerns too, should give her a call at 360-758-7260 and see how she can help you get in a better place about all of these problems that do come up in our lives. If we want them or not, we get to take care of them, and she can help you do that. And is there a good way to reach you, Diana, that I know you have a great website, but is there other ways to reach you besides your phone number? What do you suggest?
Yes, I would. We have our primary line, our primary email goes into the order desk, and that's info@treefrogfarm.com. If they want to reach me directly and are interested in a product suggestion or possibly having a consultation, they can reach me at consultations@treefrogfarm.com.
Okay.
And Marilyn, I just want to mention that my experience is when things come up in our life, they're learning opportunities. So
exactly.
It's like what can I possibly do to support the learning that's coming through with this situation, and that's a lot of where the flower essences go.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I answer a lot of questions on the internet daily, and there's so many about stress, and so that's why I was bringing this up today. So we want people to reach you, and we want people to call you and get some help for there's so many ways to deal with these kinds of things, but yours is effective. So I am Marilyn Redmond, and you're listening to Love Never Fails on the BBM Global Network TuneIn Radio, and listen to some more ways to help yourself with flower essences. We'll talk to you in a minute. I am Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails. We are coming live to you from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And we do have a phone number, 866-451-1451. And if you have questions for Diana, she'll be glad to answer them right now. You don't have to wait to call her. Call her right now if you have a question, 866-451-1451. And she's working on chakra essence blends, and we want to hear more about that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Yes. So this has been like a 7-year project, and this year I introduced the root, sacral, and solar plexus chakras. And then that was early like in early spring, winter, early spring. And then this spring, summer so far, I've made all but one of the essences, from what I understand so far anyway, that are needed to complete the heart throat, and third eye. And so actually tomorrow I'm planning to start start formulating the heart chakra blend. And then hopefully those 3 and all of them will be available by sometime in the fall and before winter. We'll see. That all comes together.
Well,
but
that's wonderful.
Right now on the website we have the root, sacral, and solar plexus chakras available.
Well, you have a wonderful website if you people want to check out Tree Frog Farm. She has all kinds of everything we're talking about there is explained. There's pictures, there's understanding. It's very descriptive, and it's fun to get lost on her website. So give it a try if you have a chance to connect with Tree Frog Farm Flower Essences on her website. You'll enjoy her website. I also know you have aromatherapy misters. How do they compare to your flower essences?
So they're different in that they contain the essential oils. The individual flower essences and the flower essence blends are strictly non-aromatic flower essences, the vibrational flower essences that we've been talking about. So the aromatherapy misters have essential oils that are blended in, as well as a few flower essences. And there's 7 of those, and then an 8th that I do seasonally for the holidays. And they each are on a theme. So we have like Angels of Light, and which is like calming, settling, bringing the angel's wings in around you. It's lavender based, and a lot of people really like that. There's one that's more of a respiratory opener. There's more eucalyptus based, and there's a gentle heart, which is rose geranium mostly, and so it's a heart opening aromatherapy mister. And again, these are different because they have both the flower essences and the essential oils. And in addition to that, they're grounded, or they're charged in a matrix of crystals. So every time we make a batch, there's a set of crystals to go with that batch, and they sit in that crystal grid for an hour.
Wow.
So I've already mentioned the stress relief, and as one of the aromatherapy misters. Fresh Start is a really nice one if you're making big changes in your life. It's a very citrusy, lemony, orangey scent.
Well, we want to thank you for all this marvelous information. I know you have an amazing story about a hawthorn tree essence. Do you want to share that?
Yes. Yeah, that was a fun one. So when I was finishing the Organ Energy Meridian blends, the last essence that I needed to make to complete the whole series was hawthorn tree. And it was on a friend's property here on Lummi Island. And so at that, I was kind of like paying attention to the weather and paying attention to the flowers, and not remembering so much to pay attention to the flowers at the friend's property. And so one day I got a call from the friend going, hey, the tree's halfway bloomed out. What are you going to do? Are you going to do this essence? I'm like, oh my gosh, I really got to do it. So I kept checking the weather, and it was like there was way too many clouds. And I was like, so I kept talking to the fairies and the weather people, and I was like, and my guides, and I'm like, we got to do this. This is the very last one that's needed. We got to do it. And so one morning I got the call, like, go do it. And I'm like, what? You got to be kidding. It's like clouds all over the sky. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. They said, get everything together, go do it. So I got up to the friend's place, which is a little higher elevation, a little further north on the island than where I am. And I could see out in the north that it was clear sky, and it was blue. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh, it's close. So I kept going, That's what we need. The blue sky we need over here, right on top of where we are, right here, right here. Blue sky, clear sky, over here, right here, right here, right here. And then there was a raven that came as I was setting up and sat on the friend's garage, and he was looking down, and I'm like, he's like, what are you doing? Like making an essence? He's like, oh, okay. So about half an hour after I set up, the weather shifted, and the area right above us was totally clear. We had clear skies, totally clear, strong sun for the whole rest of making the essence. Halfway through, the raven came and sat on the friend's house and was looking like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, okay, fine. I'm making the essence still. So then it came again at the end as I was finishing and picking up, and it's like 3 times. And I'm like, all right, he's watching me now picking up everything. And I'm like, okay, good. And so I checked with my guys, and I said, yes, raven is an imprint of this essence. So there was actually sound imprints and sometimes feathers, but this is a real live raven that wanted to be like, I'm imprinting raven energy into this. And so I got the message that the essence was about when your creative process gets disrupted, instead of falling into like anger or fear or just weakness, or this can't happen, I don't know what's going to happen, how's it going to happen, you're just going in this spin of things, and you don't focus on it. If you change that, if you shape shift like the raven, if you shape shift that into very strong, intentional, spiritual intention, then you can create what you need, and that's what we did.
Oh, what a marvelous story. We're going to go back and find out some more from Diana Pepper and Flower Essences. I am your host, Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails, and we are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Stay tuned. I am your host, Marilyn Redmond, and we're having a wonderful discussion with Diana Pepper today on Love Never Fails. We are coming live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and we're so pleased that Diana's been here with us today. I have a question for you, Diana. What's your favorite part of your job?
Oh, definitely. Well, teaching is way up there because I'm just a natural educator, and making the essences and products is a huge thing for me, and my client work. Those are the 3 things I love the most.
Oh, wonderful. And what is your proudest moment that you could recall in doing all this work?
Oh, I would say it's finishing the organ blends, because that was like a 10-year project. And wow. And then, but that'll probably change after I finish the chakra blends. That'll be my proudest moment.
Wow. Well, that's quite an accomplishment. You have really covered a lot of ground in learning about this, but also helping people be able to benefit from it. And that's the exciting part. We can call her and get consultations, take her classes, and go up to Lummi Island. It's a gorgeous place up there. Diana, what advice or wisdom would you like to share with our listeners today that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
I would say that it's equally important to take care of your energetic and emotional health as it is to take care of your physical health. Those underlie what goes on with your physical health most of the time.
Well, I think that's a very wise comment, and of course sounds real simple, but there's another part of it. It's the doing it, right?
Yep.
So
that's where the essences come in. They make it simple.
Well, that's what I found. Over the many years I've taken flower essences almost consistently. If I have a little break and then all of a sudden my angels come in and say, oh, you got to get more essences made, you run out and you haven't replaced them. And so then back again, I'm using them. And I really can tell a difference. When my clients show up, they'll say, oh, I ran out because I noticed the difference. So they're very subtle. They don't hit you over the head, like some medications. All of a sudden you really have an awareness that hit in your system real strong. These can be very subtle, but when you are not taking them, then you notice the difference. And I like that idea. Much better for me.
Yeah. Right.
Diane, I want to thank you for your wonderful input and information and experience today. You have definitely opened up new doors for a lot of listeners that flower essences are liquid. We take them orally, and they can change our attitudes, our emotions, and a lot of parts of our lives that we want to change but don't necessarily have the ability, and this can be the answer. So thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
And
Happy to be here.
Everybody, we want you to remember that I have a website, angelicasgifts.com. I do readings, counseling, and past life regressions, and I use flower essences. So next week, we are going to have tips for healthy relationships, and I'm your host, Marilyn Redmond, and we're coming to you from the BB Global Network and TuneIn Radio on Love Never Fails. Be in joy, gratitude, and the presence of love, feeling good in reality. And we'll talk to you next Tuesday afternoon, and tell your friends it's tips for healthy relationships. Have a good day.
You've been listening to Love Never Fails with your host, Marilyn Redmond. Go beyond old ideas and understandings and hear Marilyn's solutions to healing and a higher consciousness. Each week, here on Marilyn Redmond's Love Never Fails.